Hey, I'm Joe Brown.
And I'm Robert Rushing.
And we're the Old Government Guys. Old Government Guys is a podcast where we seek to highlight ordinary feds who do extraordinary things and shed light on and recognize your friends, family, and neighbors who comprise the government workforce. Too often, their work goes unnoticed, and we want to put a face on the fellow feds and share with you their stories and accomplishments in a fun and respectful way.
Hey, Old Government Guy Robert here. Welcome to episode 9, where we sit down with Miss Christine Jackson, who provides some stories from her career. And then later, I share a story, actually, with Mr. John Gibson about my time on the ATSEP team in Europe. And just a friendly reminder, this is a one-take, all mistakes podcast. So I've tacked on a little bonus outtake at the end. Hope you enjoy it. But for now, welcome to episode 9.
Hey, Robert Rushing here, one of the Old Government Guys. And today I've got the pleasure of sitting down with Miss Christine Jackson. Miss Jackson, I just have a couple of questions. I'd like to kind of chat with you a little bit about your career. You're a retired civil servant?
Yes.
Yes. And about how long was your career with civil service? Or, including military?
Okay, combined it was 28 years.
28 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you do for the government?
So I started out, I joined the Air Force.
Okay.
I dropped out of college. Well, actually, my dad wouldn't pay for it anymore. I was over at Chico State, and I'd done one semester, and I had 3 credit hours. And I don't think it was my fault that it was rated Playboy's like #1, whatever.
Party campus.
But yeah, I was enjoying my time, but apparently I had to also go to classes. So he gave me an ultimatum, and one of the ultimatums, was not join the military, like go in. So I went down to the mall that day out of rebellion, and I just signed up, and I came home and said, "Look what I did," and I joined the Air Force. Only because I kind of, in my very young, immature way of looking at things, thought I don't want to be on a boat with a bunch of, sailors. And so Air Force seemed to be something that was the right choice for me. So I went in, and 2 weeks into basic training, I called my dad crying, saying, "Get me out of here. Tell him grandma died or something, but I can't handle it." And it was actually, he told me, just, they can't hurt you. So just keep going. And you only have to go through this once in your life. But if you quit, you'll have to live with that the rest of your life. I'm like, So I did. I just stayed. And my very first, my career in the Air Force was orthotics. I was it's one of the longest tech schools in the Air Force, coupled with air traffic controller. And so I did a year. Started out in my tech school was at Wilford Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I started there, did a year, and then went over to Germany, Wiesbaden, Germany. Kind of a fun fact is that was the hospital that I was born in. And so
wow.
The medical photographer that took my baby picture, I ended up working with John the German.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. When did you transition to civil service?
So after I got out, or as I was getting out, I met Mr. Gary Jackson. And so he kind of helped me realize that I just want to be married to him.
Oh, is that the deal?
Yeah. And so that marriage took us over to Azore Islands. And at the time, the rules were that military spouses had a higher hiring preference than veterans.
Right.
And so I had to wait on that little island for every single military spouse to get a job first, even if they worked at Taco Bell for a week,
Yep.
before I could apply. And so I liked CE. I liked partying with the CE guys, and I liked the work ethic. And so I went and volunteered in the orderly room. Do you know what that is? An orderly room?
Do I know what that is? Why don't you explain to everyone else what an orderly room is?
Well, an orderly room is kind of an admin area for the commander. It's kind of all the different programs that military, they do training rips and all kinds of different things. And so I went and volunteered over there, and I was there for about 6 months or so. And the commander secretary job opened up, and all these other little girls that were, vying for that position. The commander said, I pick her in the corner that's working harder than all of you, and she's doing it for free.
Yep.
And I didn't even have to interview. He picked me up into civil service.
All
so
right.
That's how I started my civil service career, was working as the commander secretary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where'd you go from there? Tell us a little bit about your career, kind of the stops that you made, and the type of work that you did.
So from there, we went over to Okinawa, Japan, and there's a priority preference.
Yep.
Even though I was with a civil service, or married to a civil servant, I still got a priority preference. And so the very first position that opened up was a GS5 in housing. And so I got into housing, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I loved customer service. I loved helping people. And that kind of catapulted my career.
Yep.
from a GS5, and I had a boss that saw my talent and capabilities and said, I want this girl to go help me at Camp Courtney, which was a Marine Corps base, and down the road. And at the time, it was a mess. The housing was awful. Stray dogs, trash, yards weren't kept up. And she said, I want her to come help me. I want her to be the lead inspector as a GS7. So I go over there, and there was 2 Okinawan guys, and they let me know, you go sit over there in the corner and leave us alone. And we got it all figured out. Just, and they were used to a hands-off government lead.
Right.
And I'm not that way.
Right.
So, and the culture there, women really aren't well respected in the workforce.
Right.
And so I just wasn't that way. We had a general coming, and we worked our butts off cleaning up, getting ready for this general to come look. And so I remember I was running his route, and I had my little Kawasaki, whatever, and I turn a corner, and there's a piece of plywood in the middle of the road. So I get out, and I'm, all dressed up with heels and everything, and I'm pulling this plywood out of the road when the 2 inspectors come around the corner. And that moment on, I was one of them.
Yep.
Like, they saw that if I'm willing to get in there, we had a blast. Those guys and I. One time, I have to tell you this story, Robert. I love scuba diving. They called me the dive whore, because I'd go scuba diving with anyone who would, we'd be at the golf course, and I'd overhear someone say, we're going to go diving. I'd be with them. I didn't care if they were strangers. Anyway, I had an opportunity. Jeff Dom and I actually had an opportunity to go dive with whale sharks.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like a bucket list I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And so we get out there, and they videoed it. They videoed me, diving with the whale sharks. So I bring this DVD into work, and I said, I want you guys to see this. And so I show them this video, and they said, sushi, right? Yeah. And so they said, you're I've never seen this kind of whale, on video. And I said, yeah, you see whales all the time, go to the BX. I'm kind of joking around, and they nicknamed me Skinny Whale. Because I say, oh, you see different color whale. They call me Skinny Whale, so that was my nickname, Skinny Whale. But we had a blast. Oh, they were great guys,
Yeah.
and it had been where they only went out to lunch, only the guys, and I became a part of that. They started inviting me out to lunch.
One of the
with
guys.
them. And I knew then I was in. So that was in Okinawa, and then we got stationed at Travis. And in federal service, sometimes when you have to move, you have to take a downgrade.
Yep.
So I went back down to a secretary, and someone in CE heard about me, and they pulled me over into ops secretary. So and then I got a call. That boss that sent me to Camp Courtney calls me. I'm at Travis, and I'm sitting there living my life, and says, I have created a job for you at Randolph, and it's geared for you. I want you to become the GOQ specialist out at Randolph. They need one, and it's with 12 different generals, and I can't think of a better person that in my career that would be great at this.
Yes.
And so I came over to Randolph as a GS9, and I think that's when I met you, actually.
I was going to say, that's when you met your best boss ever.
Actually,
we want to talk about that right now.
Actually,
oh, here we go.
Actually, yeah, that's true. That is actually true. No, seriously, it was one of the best jobs I think I ever had. I loved it.
Yeah.
And if I can brag, I was good at it.
Yes.
I really, because I loved it. It wasn't a job for me. It was a dedication, and it became like a commitment.
Right.
Because when you're working with general officers and their wives, it's around the clock.
Yeah.
You've got a water leak, or you've got anything going on, you're the point person.
And they're what I appreciated about you, that is where we met. That's where I met Christine, and I have my Christine story I'll tell in a minute, which is a good story.
Oh, good.
It may be the only one.
Okay.
But the GOQ's, General Officer Quarters, are also very highly regulated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
congressional
oversight,
yes,
down to the penny, like what you can spend on them. And for me, that was my first time directly managing housing, and it was so wonderful that you were there, because I didn't have to worry about some congressman going, what's going on with this thing? Because at that point, you had been doing it for a while before I showed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead and talk a little bit about your time at Randolph. But I just want to say I appreciated you for that, because that was every other base. It's a huge pain where you've got to, just being honest, where you've got a general living. But because of you, I didn't have to worry about it.
Well, that's great, and because of you. My first introduction with you is, I remember you coming in, and I appreciated how hands-on you were as a first supervisor, correct? That was the first time you ever supervised. And so you come into my office, and I've got mounds of paperwork everywhere, and I'm juggling all this stuff. And you ask me what's on my plate, and I give you about 9 or 10 different deadlines, or suspenses that were due, that I'm tracking, right? So you helped me with my job. So the next thing I know, I get, now there's 3 or 4 levels between you and I. At the time, I had a supervisor and a supervisor, so there were 3 or 4. So the next thing I knew, I was getting 3 or 4 suspenses on every one of those tasks. So I'm now having to answer to 3 or 4 people on where the status. So that became a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to do my own job. So thank you for that introduction, because that really was the most inefficient way of managing my program for me.
This is a joke. No, just kidding. Yeah. No, we'll talk about introductions in the crew sheet, I'm sure, later. But that was something that I brought that I thought was really useful. It turned out it wasn't.
Well, we laugh about it now.
Yeah, we laugh about it now.
But actually, seriously, it was one of the greatest jobs, but you're right. It had congressional oversight. It had, a lot
Yes.
of scrutiny.
Right.
And, and I had the ability, and I think it was a God-given talent, that how to tell the general no
Right.
in a way that doesn't get you fired.
Right.
And so it's really, there were so many soft skills that I brought to the table that you really couldn't put in a position description.
Right.
That you needed to not be a threat to their wives, right? You needed to maneuver, the general says one thing and the wife says another, and how do you figure all that out, and how to do things that make them feel like
right, they're making decisions,
but yet you've got that. And so it ended up, I learned ways around it, and it ended up being great, where I used Congress against them. I said, I'll staff this up and let's see what they think.
Right.
And they're like, no, I don't want my name on that.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Here's the story of when we met, and kind of something that you said, your philosophy. So you think about our men and women in uniform, and they are, whether we're at war or peacetime, often they're deployed and they're away from home. And a lot of times in these locations, they're in harm's way. And I just remember you saying, I don't want our deployed members to have to worry about what's going on at home so that they can be deployed.
Yeah.
Because, you think about owning a house, something's always breaking, there's stuff going on. Many times it's their spouses, back at home alone. Maybe they've got kids or whatever. And I think the way that you cared for the folks that stayed back, and if there was something wrong with housing, especially if it was a spouse of someone who was deployed, it's like you made sure that we were all over that. Because you're right. Like the last thing, and I just remember the last thing I want someone thinking about, they're getting shot at. And it's like, I wonder if they've ever got, the air conditioning fixed or something.
That's true.
And it's little things like that you don't, again, public doesn't think about the work that we do to make sure, in this case, like our military members can go and do their jobs without the burden of, wondering if my family's being taken care of.
You're absolutely right. That is the key. That is serving the mission that way. And often I would have, and you remember this, I'd have a spouse coming in crying because something's going on with their house, and they're stressed out. Their husband's deployed, and it's you don't have control.
Right.
And and one thing that I think is very important to note is the two things that the military care most about is finances and housing. They want to make sure their family is provided and protected and cared for. And so we did try, I had a fantastic staff,
Right.
I want to acknowledge Manny Campos,
Manny.
a fantastic staff that would rally around and do what it took to support the family. And I got those emails and comments back from the deployed members that would come back, that would thank us. And so we typically heard all the negative, right? But
Right.
it stood out that we would get those.
So can I take us in a little different direction,
Yeah.
because you'd mentioned
Yeah.
Manny? So when I met you, when I came to Randolph, you were the GOQ coordinator. And then over time, we had some opportunities where, the kind of the housing lead position came open. And I just looked through the office, was like, again, because of all the hard work and your professionalism, I said, Christine absolutely is the right person for this job, right? So you were the housing lead, which also include dorms.
Yeah.
And so Manny Campos isn't with us anymore, but Manny was an outstanding guy. And so Manny and JD Turnbow, right, they both worked in the shops, or they were in ops,
Yeah.
had no dorm management experience.
None.
And, we had a leader at the time that's like, if you just give me someone with initiative and who cares, and I can teach them any job, right? And that was literally this case. So we, me, you, and I'm not saying we took a chance, because they were a known commodity for their personalities and their work ethic, but we picked them up to manage the dorms. And could you tell me just a little bit of remember, there were some, like, at the time they took over, the airmen were constantly applying for waivers to get out of the dorms.
Yeah.
And then just tell me a little bit about what those two did and kind of how that attitude in the dorms turned around.
Yeah, so I was known once I started supervising, and thanks to you that saw my potential, that trickled down to how I wanted to lead.
Right.
Is to see those with potential, and actually Manny was he had kind of exhausted his welcome over in the ops, and I was known at, after that is taking throwaway employees,
Yep.
if you will, and see their potential and talents and abilities and find the right fit for them. And that was the right fit for Manny. And that guy was one of the hardest workers and dedicated. He was, if you remember, he was doing service contracts.
Yep.
And so he was out there with them. If there was a water main break or something, we were the ones standing at the hole, watching the one guy in the hole. But Manny was at the outside of the hole with me, and he would stay until it was done. And so to have that heart, he and JD were the perfect duo to come together. And JD was prior military, but Manny wasn't.
Right.
But Manny had a servant's heart,
Right.
and that's one thing that benefited the airmen in the dorms, because they cared more than I've ever really seen, except, Tom Killingbeck was another one. But they all cared so deeply for those airmen that they became mentors for them. It wasn't about, having a work order. It was how was this weekend? I heard you broke up with someone. How are you doing? Doing that pulse check. And that changed our occupancy rate greatly.
I know.
Just someone who cared. People weren't wanting to fly off, off base, because one thing that we don't talk about is the parents. Right. I told you my dad in college is the parents worrying about these young kids. They're 17, 18, 19, young kids. It's like going off to college, right? But now you're in the Air Force, and young kids that age, they're going to go do stupid stuff, right? Especially when they're off base.
We all did.
Yeah. And so they had mentors that were kind of parental type figures in their lives that would just listen, and they established those relationships with those kids that were unprecedented, honestly. And I don't know if it ever, ended up being anywhere similar to what they had. It was just the perfect fit for.
I've got goosebumps. You talking about how much they cared about the airmen, because I'd go over, stop by the dorm office, see how things are going periodically, and it was rare that when I would go over there, it would just be Manny and JD in the office, because there was always airmen in there.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember this. So it's kind of a tradition with the military that when Thanksgiving comes around, the chiefs and the senior enlisted will go over and they'll fix food for they'll serve food at the dining hall to the airmen. But I remember when the airmen in the dorms, they cared so much for Manny and JB that they wanted to fix them Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I got a call from the chief.
Actually, the residents voted. They said, this is what we want. This is our family.
Yeah.
We want to have it here. And they didn't like that.
I know. I got a call from the chief. It was like, what are you guys? I'm like, do you not recognize how much they love Manny and JB? Because Manny and JD poured themselves into the airmen. And they did. And what was funny is because they hadn't managed dorms before, they didn't know about constraints. Mm-hmm. So remember how they would go around and they talk to the local community colleges. Remember when they put on that community college fair for the airmen in the dorms, and then you got the education office going, hey, wait a minute, and that's what I loved about Manny and JD is it was just like a family.
They took chances.
They
and
took chances in good ways.
Yeah, in good ways. And you mentioned that you didn't have to worry about the GOQ program. I didn't have to worry about the dorms at all.
I know.
I mean, it was best for me. It would have been good for you to know this too at the time. It was best for me to stay awake and let them do what they do. I'd take the hits from leadership if they were doing something off. But if you remember, because of Manny's background and JD's connections, the two of them, that became a very modern, state-of-the-art dorm that was actually an Air Force standard eventually.
Other bases were coming here. That's right.
The way the media room,
I know,
the kitchens,
the stainless steel, outdoor cook stoves, right?
So they created an atmosphere that these airmen were proud of, and once it was built, they're like, why would we go to a dining facility and have Thanksgiving? This is our home that we're proud of, and so I loved that. It was a great time. And I'm really glad that we took a segment to honor Manny because that heart, it stood out.
Yeah,
in my career.
I know. Manny's just a good guy.
Yeah,
good guy.
Yeah, and JD and Tom Killingbeck and all those that. That's not a job that you grow up going, I want to be a door manager, right? But you really have to have a heart and there's a guy, you don't know him, but actually I can't remember his name, but he was an old guy in ops. And he was always asking, he wanted to get out of the shops and he wanted to have a white collar job. And he kept begging me to be in the dorms. And finally, right before I left, he was the brother. There were two brothers, if you remember. He always dressed up and he was, he finally got to customer service, but he still wanted to be in dorms. Do you know when I came back, that guy came into my office one day. So this was like 10 years later, and he's crying. He's in his 80s, still working dorms, crying, saying it was the best job he ever had in his whole career. Thanks for the chance. And that he said, I will die there because I don't want to retire because it's not a job for him.
I know.
And so I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
So let's get back to your career.
Okay. All right.
So after Randolph, what did you do?
Well, I can't just move on past Randolph because I've got to acknowledge my best boss that I've ever had. It's you. I think that's why you did this whole segment because you wanted to hear more about you.
That's
your crew. You and your crew sheet. But after that initial and me kind of giving you a what for and saying this is not going to work.
Yeah.
I had the confidence in my program to know.
Right.
How to navigate my time. And that was one thing, in our career, Gary was back at Travis and I was here by myself. So I put a lot of the hours that looking back, had I had the kids I have now and all that, my work life, home life balance would have been different. Fortunately for that job, I needed to work the long hours, but I have to say, you were there with me. Yeah. You would pull up. I had the best office ever on all of Randolph, I think. I got to see all, Harmon Drive. But you would pull up and you check on me and you usually would stay. And we'd talk and I didn't get my work done, but you saw the potential in me. And so you catapulted my career. And NSPS.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the acronym.
National Security Personnel System.
Well, that was one of the best things that happened in my career because you were able to award me based on my efforts and talents and abilities, substantial in my salary. And so I went up to, I think I was, I was deputy.
That's right.
Housing. And then when the housing manager left, then I became the housing manager because of you. In doing that. And then you left. You were leaving.
Right.
And you came into my office and you said, I'm wanting to consider you to take my place as asset manager.
Right.
Now, that was huge for my career. Huge.
Right.
And I never expected that. And you kind of gave me a fast, training and
Hey, we had good continuity books.
we had
then.
continuity
We had
books.
good continuity
That's true.
books, that's right.
But you were so good with mentoring me into that job that that was rewarding. So I was then over environmental, knew nothing about it. Was it not all the command or real property?
Yeah, the optimization section,
Optimization
energy,
section,
utilities, real property, planning,
and housing. I was probably the most unqualified person, but
maybe on day one.
But we had great section chiefs.
That's right.
And it was managing them. And you taught me, as long as I could resource them, and I think I learned this from you in housing, as long as I provide them the resources that they need to help better do their job, give them that autonomy. And so that's what I did. And so from there, we became joint base.
Right.
And so once we became joint base, I don't know if you knew this, there were 16 flight chiefs all vying for five positions or something like that. It was weird how it was done, but the 3 commanders got us all in a room. And it was like a lottery kind of thing. It was like, I think each
duck, goose.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
I think each commander got to pick 3 or something like that, or maybe 2, because there were 6. And so our commander got 2. We all got 2, and Willie and I were the 2 that were picked.
Oh, wow.
Willie Monroe, and I was the only female. And so what I really liked is when we all met. I have a funny story to tell you about one that we know of. He ended up being the joint base commander, right? And we're sitting around in a conference room one time, and this is after we had joint based, and I think it was the commander and someone else had this great idea that every position in civil engineering should be an engineer. Every position.
Yes.
Do you remember that? I don't know if you heard about it.
It goes through cycles.
Okay. Yeah. So we're sitting around this conference room table, and I've never been known to have a poker face, right? I've got the look. And yes. And David didn't he says, Christine, clearly you've got a look. I said, oh, I think it's a great idea. I can picture an engineer going and telling a general officer why his office is too big, right? And how we're gonna, and so I elaborate on that, and he shut it down immediately. He's like, "Never mind, we won't do housing. We want to, And so it never really took off, and that's a good thing because there's so many non-engineer positions that are vital in CE, right? That engineers have a way of.
They're very like checklist, black and white. And you had talked about soft skills earlier.
Yes.
And you can't just go up to a general and go, no, page 12, section 6. Like you have to handle.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to handle the GOs and their wives. That's right. Yeah.
So after joint base, it was Army run, and it was a different way. It was just completely different. And what my struggle was I had no qualms firing people. I was kind of known that you've got a problem child, put them under me. I'll do the footwork to.
Why, Christine, you can't fire federal employees.
Yeah, well, I did.
It happens. That's right.
It happens, and I did, and I wasn't afraid of that because I'm going to go back. When I was in the Air Force, I saw these civil servants. And I thought they were the laziest workforce I'd ever experienced from my airman perspective. Right. They left right on time. They were, and we worked long hours in the Air Force. And I thought I'd never want to be civil service. So when I had the opportunity and I'm volunteering, I'm like, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to paradigm shift this. Yeah. Even if it's just me, I'm going to work hard in civil service, I came to find out that with unions and everything else and requirements that you can't work overtime
Right.
without compensation. And so that kind of helped me understand my perspective a little bit different. But when I moved to Joint Base San Antonio, I ended up going to Lackland, which was absolutely the furthest base from where we live, clear
Yes.
out in the middle of nowhere. And so, but I had 3 different unions I was dealing with. So you would have a GS5 next to a GS5, and this one's working their butt off, and this one's got a 4-day work week and hardly doing anything, but I can't touch them because of their union. And the standards, the double standards were so bad.
Right.
And it was really, not to call out, but the Randolph people, the work ethic,
I know,
was so different. And I look back, I think Lackland has the quantity,
Right.
and Randolph had the quality.
Right.
And so it was just a different workforce, and it was really hard to maneuver, and so many politics. I was not used to not having that autonomy to just move and do
what you needed to do.
There were so many constraints, and I had to deal with the commander. He said, he was civil servant, and he said, don't leave before me. Well, as soon as he left, he went over to AFCEC. I was right behind him.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go over to AFCEC. I worked in housing privatization over there, and then switched to utilities privatization. And so that was a great job too. I met Sean Rose there.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different level. I remember several times in my career, I got to go up to the Pentagon at one time, and I was on a team to rewrite the AFI for general officers, and that was pretty fun. And I remember sitting around at a desk going, I hate this one thing. Who do we talk to change this? And then it's silent, and I'm realizing I'm on that committee to change it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool. Like, I can make a difference,
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of great opportunities. But so I went to AFCEC, and right around, I don't know, I was there probably maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and we got a letter in the mail with an opportunity to adopt my niece and my 2 nephews. And so they were a part of that.
Right.
They did a baby shower for us, and they would want updates all the time with where are you at. And Sean Rose actually talked about that. He's like, how old are the kids now? Because he
Yes.
remembers that journey of dealing with adoption. And then after that, we made the decision for me to come home and help raise them, and then I went back in.
Yeah.
I got bored. They went to school, and I'm wondering what to do. So
I got to do something.
yeah. So it's like whoever comes back. It's kind of
Right.
like, yeah. So I went back in, and I did 3 years back at base level.
Okay.
I was at the group.
Yeah.
And worked several different programs, mostly as supervisory, and got to see the great potential in some people,
Right.
and got to plug them where they belong and mentor and do the things that I learned
Yes.
from you and from other giants that I stood on the shoulders of, and really got them situated where they need to be. And then I knew my time was over,
Yeah.
and it was time to hang it up for good.
All right.
And
Yeah,
so-
that's good.
Yeah.
No, so okay. Well, we'll save the crew story for the next time we meet. But Christine, for now, I just want to thank you for sitting down with us.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap this session up, and I'm sure that I'll probably have you back because you've done a lot, and you survived the first year of me being a supervisor, and there weren't too many because remember I lost like half the staff because I was asking them in triplicate what they were doing and everything else. But I appreciate your dedication. The one thing that I took away from our work relationship was it was just always the airmen and their families first, and like that bled over to me, and then we just became friends over time. And so I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your dedication. and commitment to our country, because you served in uniform and then you continue to serve out of uniform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I love this, that you're doing this. I love that you're bringing us back and remembering things that I hadn't remembered in years. So
Yeah.
thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And I appreciate our friendship. I love that, you know, I pass by your old house all the time. I'm like, it's still there. It didn't flood out yet.
It didn't flood this time.
And that we're always, you know, the friendships that we made, you know, we're always talking about or ask about each other's spouses and kids. And it wasn't just a work relationship. It bled into something much more. So I appreciate that.
Well, we had, and being serious, like I did lose, it was half the staff, you know, in those couple years after we came out of NSPS. There were some concerns about my leadership style. There was a lot of different reasons that folks had left, but I think when we were small and we had to help each other out and, you know, kind of double down just to make sure that nothing fell through the cracks, that we became, I always say it was probably one of the toughest jobs I ever had, but I would do it again in a heartbeat because of the people that we worked with.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Christine. Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Robert here. If you find yourself traveling down I-40 in eastern Oklahoma and you need a quiet place for the night, stop in and see my friends Kelly and Jody at Ambassador's Inn and RV Park, where they aim to provide you three things: a clean room, your restful night's sleep, and probably a wacky story, because Kelly is full of them. But don't, and I repeat, do not let him tell you a joke. He's terrible at jokes. Kelly and Jody aim to provide a clean, quiet, uneventful stay. Ambassador's Inn and RV Park is an American-owned and operated small business where your peace and comfort are their top priority. You'll find Ambassador's Inn and RV Park at exit 278, where a safe and homely atmosphere awaits. Be sure and tell them the old government guy sent you. For more information, you can find Ambassador's Inn and RV on Facebook or give them a call at 918-463-3727.
So did the ATSEPs go with the IG at the same time?
Yes, and AUTCD, ATSEP, and IG went together.
So I have one ATSEP story that's kind of fun. So we didn't go, I was in Europe, and we went to, my first ATSEP was Aviano. And the way the team chief there, and I'm going to reach out to Tim Hirschberger, but he was the team chief. And so the new guys, rookies, had to buy the snacks.
Okay.
So our first night, Tim Dodge, I think you know Tim Dodge.
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, Tim and I, we, you know, and everyone's like, all right, the rookies are buying. So they make this ridiculous list of snacks, and it takes us, you know, it's $1 million and 2 days of shopping to get everyone all their snacks. Well,
Okay.
Well, the next day, he and I were like, I'm tired of this. And so the next day, the Chiefs bought the snacks. So we went into the workroom, and so this is the first time some of these folks will have heard this. We went into the workroom and they were all out, and we're trying to find the most obnoxious thing we could think to write on the snack list. So I wrote hot pickle on there, and Tim wrote spicy beef jerky, or vice versa. I don't remember who. I may have wrote them both. And so later that night, we all reconvened, you know, and the Chiefs are like 40 minutes, maybe an hour late coming back. And they bust through the door and they're like, I don't know who wanted a hot damn pickle, you know, but you can't find them in Italy, you know. And they stopped at like a dozen different Italian stores, like everywhere. And they threw them down, and they were waiting to see who was going to walk up and get it. And Tim and I in the back like,
We didn't do it.
there's no way I'm walking up there to
We're
get it.
the rookies. We're not going to do that.
Well, and to this day, so that became a running joke with Tim and I.
Yeah.
So a couple years later, you know, Tim gets deployed to Iraq at the time, and I sent him a box of hot pickles, you know, and he's like, hey, this is kind of good going down, but over here in the desert, it's not so good coming out, you know. So yeah, sorry, I'll edit that part out. And then, he was the group commander at F.E. Warren, and I knew his deputy, and he didn't know I knew his deputy.
Okay.
And I said, I'm begging you, you know, and I didn't have hot. I said, go buy some spicy beef jerky and just leave it on the conference room table for his first staff meeting. So Tim walks in, it's his first staff meeting. He looks down, he sees it, and goes, all right, who knows Robert Rushing? So,
Yep.
And there you have it. We just wrapped up another episode of The Old Government Guys, a Rapid Point studio production. We're always on the lookout for new folks to highlight, so if you know someone who deserves to be recognized, let us know. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out and send us a note at ogg@rapidpointstudio.com. Old Government Guy Robert here. Just wanted to thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like, follow, or subscribe, and make sure you tell a friend about the show. It's our goal to be your third favorite podcast, so keep the suggestions coming in as we work to mature our platform. And once again, thanks for tuning in. Hey, Robert Rushing here, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce Bo Bloomer. He's with the Checkmate Realty Group, and let Bo tell you a little bit about what it is he does.
So we're super excited to be able to continue to help folks. I'm retired Air Force, and you talk about your service, and one of the things that we do now is that we're able to continue our service by helping folks find homes, find a house that their family can make a home. We're here across all of DC, Virginia, and Maryland. And what's great is that individuals moving in from all the different locations, as well as people here that might be downsizing or even maybe looking for an investment, something like that. We're kind of all your real estate needs, your one-stop shop. So looking forward to help out individuals. One of the things that we often will talk about is that if individuals have not moved in the area yet, we can help you out by being your boots on the ground and walk through and do FaceTime videos or any kind of thing like that, so that you can see a home if you're interested in that. Other than that, we are also super adept at picking up folks at the airport if you're coming out for a house hunting trip. Matter of fact, I've got one tomorrow with an individual coming out from Arizona. Pick you up at the airport, drive you around. You can look at different areas. We can give you a different sense of like this little town or that little town, so that you can really find a place you fall in love with and that your family's going to have a wonderful place to make a home.
All right. And as a customer, I can say this. When we moved to the NCR, it was a change of agency for me. The family was stressing, in the middle of the pandemic. And one thing we didn't have to worry about the house because we knew that you were going to take care of us. And so, Bo, I thank you for that.
Thanks so much, Robert. It was an absolute pleasure working with you, and being able to help out folks is the top of our game. We love doing that.
All right. Hey, Robert Rushing here, one of the Old Government Guys. And today I've got the pleasure of sitting down with Miss Christine Jackson. Hey, they don't know that we used to work together. So Christine gets a little grace because I'm going to redo that. That'll be the gag reel thing. All right. I have to be serious. I'm just kidding.